10 Leute
Ja.
am Tag sogar.
Und Stefan Müller hat das Studio da auch in der Ecke, ne? Auch in der Eisenach. Nee, in der.
Nee, der ist.
Aber da um die Ecke.
Ja, da um die Ecke, ja.
Mhm.
Thank you. My name is Roman Garniski. I'm the author of Typefaces of the Temporary State, Type Foundry that was founded about a month ago. And today I would like to talk about 5 typefaces that I'd like to make and publish sometime in the future. So, to start things off, I would like to make a revival, in particular a revival of some grotesques from the beginning of 20th century, mostly American grotesques of the time. There is no specific sample in mind, they are all quite similar from different founders. And in fact, I actually even made this typeface already a while ago, but until February 2008, Esquire magazine Russia has exclusive rights for it, so it is still a thing of the future to be released. And what I wanted to talk in specifically is the translation from the old specimen, from the old rough edges that you find in old books, to the modern digital outlines. Because of course the precision of modern digital typefaces is much higher than it was in metal print, and there is a space for a lot of speculations how it should look like once you have this precision, and a lot of things to be found or lost in translation from this low precision to high resolution of digital outlines. And of course I wouldn't be interested to just somehow copy the effect of the old print and to add some digital special effect to make the typeface look old. I think it's a bit too gimmicky, but also I think a lot of things are being lost now in the way the revivals are made usually. So the example here is Founder's Grotesque from Clean Type Foundry, and I use it as an example because it's also based on a similar grotesque. I think it's only different is that he was looking more at the British ones, while I was looking more at the Americans, but still I think the main points are valid for both of them. And as you can see, on the left is the original specimen, and on the right is the digital version. And I think a lot of crucial things were lost in this translation, because when you make digital outlines, there is huge temptations to make things look perfect, to make curves absolutely precise, but a lot of irregularities that you have in the original typefaces, like with C, with this narrow N, with this uneven stroke of S, they get lost, and I think it's a very important part of the original typefaces. So here you can see a text sample of Founder's Grotesque. As you can see, in a typesetting it's very smooth and very sharp. And here is a text sample of the typeface that I made for Esquire magazine. As you can see, it has much more irregularities, and I think in a typesetting it is due to these irregularities is much closer to what it used to be. Here you can have a comparison. On the left, Founder's Grotesque, on the right, Esquire typeface. And here the same thing, just a little bit bigger when you can see the details maybe better. And the things that I try to do in the design of these typefaces is occasionally there are some shifts in values, like in this capital K and lowercase a, they a bit embellish to the top, or sometimes the width of the characters is inconsistent, like in this case capital and lowercase m are a bit more narrow than they should normally be, maybe. This is hard to see, but W is a little bit falling to the right. It's not quite symmetrical. Or like in this case, it's just the outlines is quite uneven and the curves like here far from perfect, and it looks good. So I think it's an interesting topic to think of how to use this maybe old mistakes or inconsistencies that did exist in those typefaces and use them as a tool to create maybe more vivid and irregular typesetting in a typeface. And this is definitely that I would also like to explore further in future practice. So that's it for now. The second typeface I want to talk about is I want to make a monospace typeface. I was always interested in this special rhythm that monospace typefaces create due to different stretching and condensation of the characters that are necessary to fit them into the same squares. And in particular, I was always fascinated by the monospace typefaces for Chinese typesetting. I think most of them come from Microsoft, and a lot of them are based on, I think they look quite a lot like century-old style. So here's a couple of examples and how they look in typesetting. Here's some more. And here's a at the moment still untitled typeface that I drew. Here's the character set, and here is how it looks in a typesetting. But the thing with this monospace typefaces, and what interests me the most, is not the fact of the monospacity, because you really need, unless you deal with some lines of code or some other specific occasions, for all the characters to have the same width. So what I'm more interested in is just this very special rhythm that this monospace typeface is great. So the idea is to actually make this monospace typeface, but then also to make a proportional monospace typeface, if it makes any sense. So to take all the characters designed for this monospace used, and then somehow try to set them proportionally and give them maybe more reasonable metrics and reasonable turning. So the example on the right is like automatically generated proportional typeface. I just asked FontLab to do automatic metrics for each character of the monospace, and asked InDesign to do optical turning for it. And here is the result. And I think it's quite interesting how it still keeps this strange feeling that initial monospace typeface has, but still it's a proportional typeface. And here is the same, this proportional version of a monospace, just a little bit bigger. And I still didn't do the proportional version correctly, but I think it raises quite some interesting question in this translation from monospace to proportional. Like, for example, when I will make this proportional version of a typeface, like, do I change the character design? Do I make these serifs of the I and L, which are very much stretched in a monospace typeface? Do I make them shorter? Do I make changes to M to make it wider? And at what point in these changes will I lose this particular feeling of a monospace typeface? So, like, which parts of this is essential, which is not? And also, metrics, I think, will be quite interesting, because it is not an easy question, like, how do we deal with this I or capital I, which has much longer serifs than the rest. of the typeface and how to space it. So this is it for the second one. First typeface I would like to make is actually a Helvetica clone. And the interest between making a Helvetica clone is this Cyrillic specimen that you see. And I think it will be quite difficult to explain what's so special about this specimen, because probably you are not familiar with Cyrillic letters and Cyrillic typesetting, but I think I'll try to explain. So this is a specimen from, I think, late 60s, maybe beginning of the 70s. At the time in Soviet Union there was really small amount of typefaces. If you go to a print house, they will usually have one typeface for typesetting. If you're lucky, you can maybe get three, and in general, just in the whole country, there will be maybe, I don't know, 5-7 typefaces in general. So the choice was not very wide, and of course there was a huge need and demand for new typefaces. So this was made for photo setting, and of course it is next to impossible to do modernist graphic design without a Helvetica, and there was no Helvetica. So this is of course a bootleg copy made by some graphic designers. I'm still not sure who they are for it. Initially I thought it was made by Maxim Zhukov, but at this point I'm not sure anymore. So I will try to explain what's so special about it. The easy part, of course, of making a Cyrillic version out of a Latin part is the letters that look exactly the same. So you just copy paste them. But then also there are some more or less simple shapes, which are a copy of existing capital letters. So there is also not much thinking or variation how they can look like. So they also look normal, but the rest of the character set in this typeface is very strange. So for the part of it, you have some very nice drawings. So here in black you have the character from the specimen, and in gray I'm trying to give you the idea how the letter should look like more or less. So for example, this uppercase U, it has a very funny and very hand-drawn tail that is strangely attached to the other body. So it gives the character this strange feeling of almost being a handmade, which is not quite in the spirit of Helvetica, which tries to be a very objective typeface. Or the same thing with capital and both lowercase k, because, well, Cyrillic k can look more or less like Latin k, but in this case they decided to draw them this funny soft antlers. I'm not sure also what the thinking was behind it. Maybe it was a copy of Latin lowercase r, but just without a ball in the second branch, or maybe they were just used more to this shape of K, I don't know. But it also has a very naive, very not optically correct feeling and drawing to it. So there are some letters that have this feeling, but also there are some letters that I would call mechanical Cyrilization. It is when you take some existing Latin characters and somehow try to make them work in Cyrillic. So for example, this letter is actually the same letter as this, which is doesn't seem so obvious because it even is different from the cursive form, but it is a shape of a letter that you can maybe expect from a handwriting. So it is just a strange occurrence in Helvetica typeface that all of a sudden you have a letter in Helvetica style drawing, but that has shape of a letter that is only characteristic for a handwriting. Or in a similar spirit, this is lowercase g, and this is actually a cursive form of lowercase g. So sometimes, and obviously it was made from lowercase Latin s, just flipping it around. So also in this typeface, sometimes you encounter some upright cursive in the middle of Helvetica typeface that also gives it a strange feeling. Or sometimes this is letter L, lowercase. I think, well, people are much more used to this shape of letter L. This is not incorrect shape, but it's hard to explain what is wrong with it because it's something. It's just the feelings that you have. But I don't know. Maybe it looks a bit ancient, something maybe from 18th century. But in general, it's just a little bit strange and awkward to see this shape in a Cyrillic typeface. And it was obviously made just by flipping lowercase v. And then there are also just some strange things going on. So this is lowercase c, and I'm not even sure like what the decision making was behind it, but they decided to, instead of giving it a proper leg, just use this very thin bar. So of course I can read it, I can recognize what letter is it, I can guess the shape, but it just feels a bit strange, and even like these graphics are not characteristic for Helvetica itself in general, this thin long bars. So all in all, in combination, you have, even though the graphics may look very similar to the Helvetica typeface, but you have some kind of a crazy mix of everything, of some naive awkwardness, of some upright cursive, of some just very mechanical looking stuff, and in general just some weird stuff. So this is the digitization that I made for Art Foundation in Russia called VC for one of their projects. I think it was done in September last year. And here you can compare the alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet of this Soviet Helvetica to, on the right, it is a typeface called Pragmatica, which is more or less canonical version of Cyrillic Helvetica bold. And you can see, even though like they come from the same source, they speak the same language, to what extent the characters and the whole feeling of a typeface is different. It is especially obvious in a typesetting when these two typefaces coming from the same original give completely different feeling and spirit. This on the left is much more soft, much more rounded. I don't know, for whatever reason, it makes me think about some Bulgarian Cyrillics or something like that. So, I don't know, it just for me, it has some strange southern notions in it. So, I made this digitization of this old specimen, but the reason why I cannot still publish it is because still to this moment I have no idea how to translate all this crazy mix that exists in Cyrillic back into Latin. Because obviously at the moment the Latin part of this typeface on the left is just Helvetica bold. And how to find a way back for all this crazy stuff that happened in translation one way, for the translation backwards, still to this moment I got no idea. It doesn't make sense to just try to copy some Cyrillic letters and put them into Latin alphabet, because actually the effect that you are getting is quite the contrary. So on the left you have all this soft, rounded and strange shapes, and on the wrong and on the right you actually make Helvetica look very edgy and straight with a lot of straight angles. So you're actually taking them apart much more than you're making them the same typeface. So I think to this time the only characters that I have vague idea of how to deal with is maybe late K. And this example here is a typeface named Grotesque. It's a typeface that I made in 2009, and at that time I thought it would be really smart and funny to put curly graphics of K back into Latin typeface. I don't think this really worked, and I don't like this Latin particle, but I think in general this idea can work for the Soviet Helvetica if executed differently. So I think at the moment I have this one idea for one letter, and for the rest of the letters I'm always clueless what to do. So here is that. The fourth typeface that I want to talk about is I want to make a typeface that is somehow disconnected from a baseline, because obviously in our typesetting every letter starts with a baseline, everything is connected to the baseline, but I think there are some areas where it can be changed and it doesn't necessarily to be so. So like for example, I don't think it's entirely necessary to connect uppercase to the same baseline as lowercase has. And I think it's specifically interested maybe for German language, because we have a lot of caps and every noun starts with a capital, and I think doing something like this in a German language, it creates probably a stronger effect than any other language, and it changes the typesetting completely. And I think when it comes to German language, it is quite appealing to do something even more extreme with the capital letters, because of how often they occur in the typesetting compared to the other languages, and what effect can they deal to the typesetting. And on a side note, I think also it is why fractal typesetting works best in German languages, because of the flamboyant uppercase fractal characters and how often they appear in German language. And I think in other languages you just don't have capitals so often, and the fractal is not as impressive. So there is this idea of somehow disconnecting capitals from the same baseline as a lowercase, but also maybe it is possible to disconnect the punctuation from a baseline. Because, for example, if you take Chinese typesetting, it doesn't really matter how do you align the punctuation. It can be aligned in the middle of the character, it can align to the bottom of the character, it still does its job, and nobody really cares too much. So this is a typeface that I made for a Russian artist, Arsenij Zreev. I think I did it in 2014 for his Venice photo show in Venice. Alright, it was 2015, probably 2 years ago. And it was designed for all caps typesetting. And as you can see here, all the punctuation is aligned to the middle of the characters. And obviously when you have this punctuation aligned to the middle of the characters, also like the rules of the punctuation change a little bit, because you now want to put a space also before the punctuation, not only after the punctuation mark. So I think it all somehow worked. And also the other thing that you can see in this typeface is that figures, the digits also have a completely different graphic and a completely different alignment. And I think it's also something that can be interesting to investigate into, because actually I think figures that don't have to follow the same rules as the alphabet characters, because they're quite a different entity. So I think maybe there's also something can be done in that direction. When it comes to lowercase, I don't think I have too much first yet, because I just didn't think about it too much yet. But for example, this is an interesting example. This is a hobo typeface, and the typeface that I like a lot. And even though it has this very strange and funky graphics, it looks like a normal typeface, and it took me actually quite some time to realize that actually this typeface doesn't have descenders at all. So all these characters like P, Q, Y that usually have descender actually just standing on a baseline. And somehow I think it goes completely unnoticed. I'm not sure. Maybe due to the graphics of the typeface, but maybe in experiments similar to this period, there are something that can be done about changing the relation between lowercase and the baseline. So there's this for the fourth one. And the fifth one that I want to talk about, and the last one, is parametric fonts and parametric type design. And I think here, as I don't have any visual examples yet, I would have to be maybe more vague and abstract. So I think before I get into it, I have to quickly explain what is interpolation, what is multiple meisters. So interpolation is basically just quite a simple tool. If you have two curves, A and B, you can find any curves that are transitional shapes in between. It's very simple mathematical equation. So you can find any curve that is like 20% between A and B, and if you want, you can even interpolate it further and think of what it will be if this row would be continued. So this interpolation is used quite extensively in type design, because what you can do is you can just draw light version, you can draw bold version, and you can generate everything in between, be it bold, semi-bold, book, whatever. And this is what is called multiple masters. So you have different axes, and you have letters changing, for example, from light to bold or from narrow to wide. And along these axes you can generate anything in between, as long as you have the extreme points. And well, obviously most of the typefaces that are made now are made with the help of this interpolation. And I think ever since the beginning of the introduction of this technology, there was a dream from Garamond to Badoni and find Baskerville somewhere in the middle, or like interpolate from Gil-Sans to Helvetica and maybe find Frutiger in the middle and things like that. So in theory you can have as many axes as you want, so it can be like 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional, whatever space. And in theory, I guess you can generate typeface with any quality as long as you have enough axes. So there are obviously now some font generation software. Like this example is something called Prototyper, and as you can see on the left, you have a lot of sliders, and by changing those sliders, you adjust different parts of the letters, like you can adjust serif width and make it a slab serif or make it something more Badoni-like. You can change aperture, you can do whatever, and in theory you can generate any typeface you design. The problem that I do have with software like this is not the technology and software itself, but more how it is used. Because I don't think it is very fruitful to try and copy all typefaces, because maybe this technology is not perfectly suitable for that, and any copy of Garamond you will acquire will eventually be better than something that you generate with this software, just because maybe this software is not perfectly suitable. It makes things very average, but still I think it's a very interesting technology, and I think in this technology it is much more interesting to think and reconsider what a letter is actually made of and how letters are constructed, and maybe the axes should be something completely different and not connected to the typeface features of the past and something we consider them to be. I don't have any visual examples at the moment, unfortunately, because I didn't develop anything yet, or I don't have any specific thoughts on the matter, but I think like some vague references that can be related to here is maybe Power Owner's Futura, when he uses this new geometry tools, I think quite creatively, to somehow redefine the structure of a typeface and the construction of the letters. Or the second of my two examples is this typeface from, I think it's from Ekal, I believe, and it is a work of somewhat deconstruction of the letters. When you break letters apart and arrange letters from the very simplistic pieces and repeating pieces that you have, but maybe you find some new arrangements, like something that you wouldn't consider before, like you wouldn't consider that R is actually made out of this shape. You would think that it should be connected to the top, but maybe it's not. And it's interesting to find new constructions and maybe new possibilities that can be used for this interpolation thing and creating multiple variations. So I think this is it for the fifth typeface, and I think this is it for my lecture. Thanks everybody for coming. It was a pleasure. And maybe somebody wants to say something and I can reply something. Thank you.